Hi there. In this video, we will discuss the summary of the 13th chapter of Ibong Adarna, titled Don Juan's Return, from stanzas 340 to 403. We will also study the important events, characters, settings, and the lessons, messages, or implications found in this chapter. Let's begin. When Don Juan returned to Brabania after his adventures, his mother greeted him with joy, but his two brothers, Don Pedro and Don Diego, were filled with fear. Don Juan immediately knelt before his father as a sign of respect and kissed his hands. At the same time, the Ibong Adarna, inside its cage, began to sing a sweet and enchanting song. The bird revealed the truth about the wrongdoing of Don Pedro and Don Diego, and the suffering Don Juan endured because of their betrayal. After the bird finished its seventh song, King Fernando was instantly healed and suddenly stood up. Upon learning about the evil deeds of his two sons against his youngest, the king immediately ordered them to be punished by exile. Don Juan felt pity for his brothers, so he knelt before his father to beg for their forgiveness. Despite the king's intense anger and grief, he was moved by Don Juan's plea and granted his request to forgive his brothers. Don Pedro and Don Diego promised never to repeat their actions. In the end, King Fernando forgave Don Pedro and Don Diego, and light returned to the kingdom as the king's recovery brought joy, accompanied by the Adarna song. Now, let's move on to the important events in this chapter. Don Juan returned to Brabania, where his mother welcomed him with joy, but his brothers, Don Pedro and Don Diego, were filled with fear. Don Juan knelt before his father and kissed his hands as a sign of respect. The Ibong Adarna sang a sweet song and revealed the betrayal of Don Pedro and Don Diego against Don Juan. King Fernando was healed after the seventh song of the Ibong Adarna and immediately ordered the punishment of his two sons. Despite the king's anger, Don Juan pleaded for his brother's forgiveness. The king granted his request, and peace was restored in the kingdom. Important characters: Don Juan, the youngest son of King Fernando, who is loyal and brave. He returned to Brabania after his adventures. King Fernando, the king of Brabania and father of Don Juan. He struggled to accept the truth about his son's betrayal. Don Pedro and Don Diego, the older brothers of Don Juan who betrayed him. Ibong Adarna, the magical bird that revealed the truth about the betrayal of Don Pedro and Don Diego. Let us now proceed to the setting of this chapter. The chapter takes place in the palace of Brabania, where Don Juan returned and the Ibong Adarna revealed the truth about what happened to Don Juan and the betrayal of his brothers. Here are some of the lessons shown in this chapter. Forgiveness within the family is important to maintain peace and unity, as shown by Don Juan's actions toward his brothers. The truth cannot be hidden, and there will come a time when it will be revealed, as shown by the Ibong Adarna's revelations. Despite anger and resentment, love and care for family should prevail, as demonstrated by King Fernando in forgiving his sons. And that concludes the 13th chapter of Ibong Adarna, titled Don Juan's Return. What did you learn from this lesson? Share your answers in the comments. We also encourage you to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to stay updated with our future videos. Until next time, thank you for watching.